Yes, for our friends. All right. So this is a meeting of the CSS Workforce New York Executive Committee meeting 10/1/2020. Present on the board is Jack Wheeler, Ernie Hartman, Mike Mishuk, and Tim Driscoll. With that 4, it does give us quorum. As far as other non-board folks, there is staff, Dan Porter, Phyllis Ballier, and Melissa Johnson. There is the potential for a couple other board members to join as the meeting progresses. So that all being said, Jack, it's your meeting.
Well done. Thank you. Call the meeting to order. Dan's done the roll call. Conflict of interest, as always, if something comes up and you or your organization has a conflict, please disclose it. We'll move on to the meeting minutes. Melissa attached them. Any questions or comments? If not, I'd take a motion to approve.
Ernie moves it.
Mishuk second.
Ernie and Mishuk, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And we'll go on to the August budget, Dan.
Okay, August 2020 budget. So a couple of things. This is through 2 months. So 2 out of 12 is about 16% of the way through the year. If you're looking at that, standard formatting. Remember the budget's on the left side, minimum expenditure goal, including obligations, is on the far right. The 2 green columns in the center are probably the 2 most important pieces to look at this juncture. Looking at subcategory total personnel, you see total accrued expenditures and obligations coming in currently about 16% on the salary line and about 10% on the fringe line. That is, I'm actually pretty pleased with that. 16% of the way through the year to have 16% of the salary line means we're progressing right on target. The fringe is behind. That's a timing issue. We haven't paid our end of the year stuff yet, so that will catch up, and then we'll be overspent on that for a while, and then it'll slowly come down and balance out. So all in all, I'm pretty pleased on the salary line. Melissa, I didn't see. Is there someone else to? Anyway.
Yes, I have Joe Roman and Judy joining us.
Okay, excellent. So looking at operating expenditures again, looking at the category total accrued expenditures, 23,047 in the category, about 17% within this category. Again, 16% of the way through the year. I'm pretty pleased. Looking at the individual components, you can see we're up on rent and we are up on dues membership, as well as some of the equipment and maintenance items as well. I think those really are timing issues, and they'll filter out over the course of the year, with the exception being the rent. But all in all, looking forward over to the other line, obligations right now at about 30%. I think we're going to be okay. I don't see any issues in that subcategory. One-stop expenses, going down to that subcategory, you look, we're about 10% expended right here in this section. $13,000 of raw expenditures, 8,700 in Elmira, 18%, Montour at 10. Projecting out over the course of the year, it looks like we're going to come in at about 40%. I don't know as though we're going to actually be that low when all is said and done. But unless our career centers really pick up pace, we are going to realize some under expenditures in this category. I don't see that being an issue though, because to be honest with you, if we have under expenditures in this category, we'll just push it down to program expenditures, in particular replenishing our training funds, which I'll talk about a little bit in a little bit. Looking at the final category, program expenditures, we're about, if you look in the center here, 218,731. We've accrued and spent out about 30% of this category, projecting at about 55% right now. Work experiences are coming on strong. There are some numbers that are not 100% accurate in terms of percentages. Remember, we got a whole bunch of youth money. A lot of that money is going to be reflected in this category here, as well as up here in the personnel categories. I am delaying kind of making that changes. We're beginning to see some workforce money flowing. I've shared a couple of those announcements. I want to make sure I don't want to do multiple adjustments throughout the course of the year. So I'm kind of waiting to get a little clearer picture on that. But work experience is going to grow dramatically from our youth program. Contracted services is really our contract with the workplace that we met and approved last time. So we don't have any concerns there. Training OJT, I'll share with you. I'm just going to kind of go real quick. This is a future item, our business services report. This is our current PY20 contracts written. We've written about $28,000 of OJTs since July. We've written about $62,000 worth of customized trainings. A big portion here of that is this ID booth training on that line right there. All told, however, we're looking at about $90,000, with right now about 2,300 of that probably not coming to fruition, which is why it's highlighted in red. But looking back over here, excuse me, we're blowing through this because we only put about 200,000 into this category at the beginning of the year with a plan to spend about 160. So we are ahead of the curve on this. So we're going to have to kind of look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. And we may have to tap the brakes a little bit after the first of the year. I'm hoping not, because that's very disruptive to our messaging and our brand in the marketplace. But we may need to tap the brakes a smidge. Top training, we set aside 50,000 for this. We've had some initial conversations. BOCES is interested in possibly running it. We've reached out and talked to the employers. This is also an item further down in today's agenda. Businesses right now do not want to entertain trainees, which really what these folks are on their sites. They're having a hard enough time keeping their head above waters with all the exposures and the COVID risks and liabilities that they really don't want new faces coming onto their floor. So we're going to have some I'd like to have a little bit of conversation around that, but really within the bigger context of our overall training priorities. Supportive services, they're beginning to take off a little bit. Mileage reimbursement, I think we actually have, and I got to go back to Patty and see, I think some of these supportive services may be mileage, because I approved one with some mileage. So I think we haven't split them out to come down to there. Tuition and incidentals, we put about 85 into that. Ernie's team has been kicking butt. They've approved just under or just over 75,000 so far. Yeah. Bottom line, within the program expenditures category, it looks like about 30%. I think as a percentage, that number is a little high because we've not fully brought in all the youth dollars. And correspondingly, on the other side, the 55% looks a little off because of those youth monies. All in all, if you look at the entire picture, we've obligated, and it looks like we're going to, if we close the year right now, we'd spend about 34% of our goal, but remember, we're only 16% of the way through the year. So I'm not unhappy with progress to date, looking at the big picture, but I do want to talk a little bit about training as a separate item, just to kind of noodle on that for a moment. But any questions on the budget, the fiscal side of this?
Any questions for Dan? If not, could we get a motion to approve the August 2020 budget?
I move
So
the
moved.
approve it.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. So you want to go to the ETPL, or do you want to talk training now?
Well, we can do ETPL. It's really fast and easy, to be truthful with you. CCC has just asked for an update to their existing Certified Professional Coder program. The only two changes are there's a smidge more money in the cost. Their program is now just under $3,000. It still fits within our ITA budget lines, but the SUNY system and the costs and are going. So this is probably not going to be the last increase that SUNY and our representation on that, anyways, which is Corning, are going to kind of push through as they struggle to bring in enough revenue to cover their expenditures. The other thing is just they've added another round of dates, which is this down here. So really, date and a mandated SUNY tuition increase process. Otherwise, it's a known provider. I would strongly recommend we approve it.
Easy enough. Can I get a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Ernie, Judy, any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, Dan,
right.
business services.
So business services report. So this is our bin team. This is adult OJTs and customized. We're getting surprising amounts of traction on although it's only a few companies overall, we're getting a surprising amount of OJT activity right now, and you can see the companies that are taking advantage of it. We've kind of, with the newest kind of faces in this, if you will, the John Mills Electric. Those are really folks that are that's kind of think pre-apprenticeship pipeline type of thing. They followed through on this. Basically, what they would like to do is to an OJT and take someone in who's maybe a little bit high risk or who has a little bit of a weak work history, and kind of train them and bring them up as a general laborer, but introduce them to the field, if you will, of being an electrician. The expectation would be at the end or shortly thereafter the end of their OJT, when the local IBEW has apprenticeship openings, that they will slide these folks into that chain. So these are not OJTs. These are not, well, they're OJTs. They're not end-all OJTs. They're really kind of starting down that trajectory. I'm pretty actually excited about that because we've had a very, very challenging time sometimes breaking into the apprenticeship world and finding a niche that we can fit. So I'm pretty pleased that we're making some traction on that front. Otherwise, it's, Ward apparatus, EL, FM Howell, TTAs. Those are really some tried and true folks. Finley's Tall Timbers, Ohio Logistics is a fairly new one with us. So I'll be interested in how that plays out. Customized trainings continue to be pretty exciting out there. If you take out these big ones here, the Covestone, which is ID Booth, and you look at kind of these others, we are pushing, we're really kind of helping businesses in a volume type of setting. These are not big number training contracts. I think in my mind, I kind of read that as we've made accessing the public workforce trainings very, very simple, to the point that folks are willing to come to us for 360, 375, 500, $700 worth of support. So the system. Someone got a copy or something?
Yeah, if folks could mute if they're not talking, please. Thank you.
Again, kind of how I look at this is, we've made this system accessible. We have heard rave reviews from the companies that have utilized in particularly electronic signatures, that they really, really like that makes it so much more efficient in their minds. So I'm happy about that. I am a little bit concerned longer term, again, looking at the bigger overall training picture. If we go to the budget back here, just kind of bouncing backwards, we put 200 into training and OJTs. I don't really want to back off from that number at all. If you go down to TOT, as much as I love the TOT program and as successful as it's been, the hallmark of the targeted occupational training is really kind of that quasi apprenticeship, where the value is getting these folks onto the floor of local employers and making those connections and giving that real world snapshot. I think if we have to redesign the program and back off of that, it becomes a standard, high quality, but still a standard BOCES type of experience. And I think we're probably going to get our hands slapped. And I think the Department of Labor's perspective might be, and I haven't asked this question, this is just supposition based on my prior experiences with them, that they probably would rather see us funnel that through a more traditional ITA type of process versus kind of the TOT where we buy the entire class. And tuition and incidentals, We're beginning to see some money flow. You're going to see that overall line increase because there's going to be a lot of youth money coming into that particular line. There'd be a little bit of money coming into the training OJT that is youth, but not a material amount. So within the broader picture, and where I kind of want to take the system is I'd like to keep training at OJT at that 200, maybe kind of encourage lower cost PERS or smaller contracts to kind of keep us on an even keel through the end of the year. I'd like to look at moving the top money, that 50,000, maybe down into tuition and incidentals under the ITA line. And if supportive services doesn't take off, or if we get a bunch of money from the, I shared with you the new $18 million amount there that the governor got. There's some monies in there specifically around supportive services and mileage reimbursement. If any of that money ends up flowing through the locals, I'd rather kind of move our 25 and 10 respectively into other training areas and use those federal/state/grant funds to kind of plug those supportive services and mileage gaps as kind of my overall strategy for working with training in terms of raw dollars and cents. The other big question I've got going on right now is, and it came to Jeannie actually mentioned, Mike and Judy, well, and Tim, actually all three of you were on that email from Judy. The CCC, the SUNY money is going to be tied to in-demand occupations. You saw that phrase repeatedly through the governor's announcement. The question becomes what's in demand in this market right now? What fields are growing and shrinking and stuff. There's some Chmura and MC datas and things out there that are kind of pointing pictures, but no one really knows. So what I do want to do is talk to our survey and our data team that we've got together. I'd like to wrap up the current survey if possible on schedule, which is roughly tomorrow or Monday, whenever we hit the minimum 500 number. And then what I'd like to do is shift and do my next round of survey and data gathering, building around careers that are looking at local employers and saying, where are you seeing growth? Are you seeing any growth? What's your timeline? Figuring some questions out about that and gathering some local meaning the 3-county employer feedback through a survey to try and give us some type of vision on what's growing in the area. I mean, I've got a couple of places that are growing. Alstom continues to hire. Corning just didn't, Corning Inc. is doing a little bit of a dig in. There's some other areas, healthcare and stuff that are still continuing to be somewhat strong, but I'd like to get a little deeper picture on that front to kind of guide where the training goes. So that's a whole lot of data dumping that I just kind of shared with you. I would love to hear your all's thoughts, opinions, nervousness, queasiness. Don't do that, Dan. Yes, do that, Dan, type of input.
Any thoughts? A lot of information, but it sounded reasonable to me. It sounds like a good approach.
I agree.
Yeah, I would
Sounds
agree.
reasonable. Right. Yep.
Okay.
You're on the right track.
All right. Well, we'll keep plodding along on that road then. The other thing is really performance measures. I just want to give you a little, this has not gone through Judy's team. They're going to get a deep dive on this. But I just want to kind of give you all the leadership team here a little bit of a heads up on some of this as well. So the state issued the Q4 out the numbers, and then they realized that they did some errors on it, so then they reissued them. Didn't really materially impact us. I think the biggest swing was like a 0.3% or something like that. Bottom line, you can look at the participants and exiters. Those are your numerators and denominators. Entered employment. If you look at our area here, our goal was that we're hitting the magic numbers right here on this side. So 116% of the goal. So we're hitting employment rate numbers in line for both adult and dislocated workers. Placement and employment or whatever for the youth program, we're hurting a little bit. So we're digging into those cohorts to see if there's some data entry issues or something there. But again, operations and oversight will tear into this, and I think Keith will have some thoughts and ideas from the youth program. Most everything else was baseline when you see here. So baseline means that, well, they're creating a baseline. There's no real target yet. But what you like to look at here is the state numbers. So looking at us, 148% of the state average, 123% of the state average. Those types of results means that we're on the right track. Employment rates, 114% for dislocated workers. Bottom line, I'm going to send this out after Judy kind of digs into it a little bit. What we really are going to need to be doing is our youth program is going to need to really be much more focused. 3 out of 5 of their performance measures were in baseline. And so we are now officially moving from baseline on the youth program to actually numbers which are going to matter. Some of these numbers I'm not pleased with when I look at them. And remember, these numbers, because of the delay with when, fourth quarter after exit and second quarter after exit, and then the time to process, some of these numbers are from performance on the program a year ago or 9 months ago. So this is the last cohort of pre-COVID program output. So we've not even got into any COVID impacts in terms of looking at this yet. Yeah, so I've kind of told Keith that over my tenure kind of doing this WIA and then WIA stuff, there are certain strategies you kind of follow and to make sure you hit your numbers, your performance numbers on these federal. And he's going to need to work with his team, and Rayanne and I can provide some guidance. But he and his team in operations and oversight on the programmatic, remember, there's a firewall, so I can't say make this change right here in the program. I can't say that. That message is going to kind of have to come through the operations and oversight team. And I will try and make suggestions from a quality assurance perspective as we do that. But ultimately, operations and oversight and Keith and is going to really have to drive this. We're going to have to become much more intentionally focused on the fact that we are an employment and training program. Now, a lot of people say you got to get these kids in here. You got to make sure you give them all the supportive services they need. You got to kind of handhold them. You got to support them as they slowly turn their lives around. I don't necessarily agree with any of that, or disagree, agree or disagree with any of that. What I will say is at the end of the day, however, you can have a very feel-good program which is making all the participants smile, but if they're not hitting these measures that you see on the screen, it's all for naught. Because ultimately, if an area does not hit its measures per New York State policy on this, after the first year, you're in a performance improvement program. If you've not improved your measures by the 3rd year and you fail this 3 years in a row, the governor basically will dissolve. I mean, there's options the governor has, but the number one option on the governor's list of options is to dissolve the local workforce board. So this is not a kind of a hypothetical, type of thing. This is real. So we're going to kind of go down this road, and I've kind of told Keith that, and I don't want to scare anybody on this, but I need everyone to understand the import behind looking at what we're doing programmatically and making sure we're hitting our measures. And that along the way being kind of the softest, touchy-feeliest type of program as we can. But if looking at the baseline numbers, I'll just give you an idea of what scares me a little bit is some of these ones down here. Hold on. Oh, you're not even, I'm not sharing my screen with you. Sorry. I forgot I unshared it. I apologize. What scares me is some of these numbers down here. So this is the measurable skills gain for our youth program. 1 out of 4. That's a 25% success rate. The state average is 40. there's two things that scare me in here. One, it's 25%, the state average is 40, let's call it 1%. What scares me even more is it's 1 out of 4. So we of all the kids that we had in our program, only 4 of them kind of fell into this measure. And of the 4 that we allowed to fall into this measure, we only made sure that 1 of them passed. That's just from a program perspective, that's troublesome. Where's the other one? The other one is right here. So this is the credential attainment for the youth program. 1 out of 3, 33% success rate, state average running about 68, 69%. The same things. A, the percentage is low, and B, 1 out of 3. We're not being very smart in how we're exiting kids and when we're exiting kids, and making sure that we don't exit them unless we know where they're going to fall in our measures. Some of that is really gained through experience. Some of it's luck, I guess, but most of it really is experience. Tim will remember back in the day, he's been around long enough. Ernie may have heard, I can't remember, but we, back in the days when CSS had performance issues, you know, we would not allow the exit of a youth participant until CSS administrative office gave them permission to exit. We were very sticklers. You show me the numbers. So when you enroll Bob as part of your enrollment decision, you tell me based on the snapshot you have right now, what measures is Bob going to fall into? And do we want him into those measures? What's our specific plan to make sure we pass those measures? And then when you're ready to exit Joe or Bob from the program, okay, he was going to come in on these 1, 2, 4, however many measures. You had this plan. Now where is he at? Projecting on what he has right now, is he going to be a success on the measures or not? And we were very, very strict on that front. And I think that methodology may have to kind of rear its ugly head again a little bit until we can take, because we got a very young youth team in terms of experience doing WIOA youth programming. I think we're going to have to very, very thoughtful, intentional, and those types of decisions are not touchy-feely. Those are really hardcore numbers management. And so that's kind of what we're working through on the Q4. So long story short, all in all, we're not doing horribly. There's one, I think, that technically we didn't pass, but I think it's not long term. I'm not scared of that one, but it is going to require some performance improvement planning on our part. What scares me more are the baseline numbers that the youth program is coming out into now, and how are they going to succeed in this environment. So more to follow. Judy will probably have a very long conversation when she presents her kind of synopsis, or maybe she'll summarize it. I'm not sure, but there'll be more coming from operations and oversight on this. But as a leadership group, I just want you to kind of know the trajectory that we're going to kind of have to go down.
Okay. Do you need approval of?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. That's just an FYI. The last thing, and then I'll be all done. CSS staff update. So we have found knock on the proverbial wood here. We've found a person that we think would bring some good skills to our youth program. With this spending bubble, we've got money excess. We've got a bubble of money that we need to spend over the next year and a half. But we've kind of advertised and found an individual who is interested in joining our team. Kind of on, and he's aware of the timeline of the position, and so if all goes well, he's going to join the youth team on the 13th of October. He's not here till he's here. That's just my experience in hiring people. So I don't even share his name or anything like that until he actually shows. But I just want you to know that it looks like we're going to be finally able to add another navigator, which will give us some additional capacity in terms of, enrolling more kids and specifically targeting some work experience and placement numbers. All I have.
Good. That's good news. Okay. So nothing else, Dan?
No, that's it.
Anything from the group? We're quiet this morning, and that's okay.
Not enough coffee yet.
Yes. All right. Well, if nothing else, motion to adjourn, please.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Tim, Judy, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.